We have this from the New York Times. You know me, you love them. NPR sues Trump over order to cut funding. The lawsuit filed in federal court in Washington by NPR, another public radio organization, said President Trump's executive order violated the Constitution and the First Amendment. I absolutely love that NPR's argument is we have a First Amendment right to taxpayer funds. It is a psychotic, crazy world where the AP, the Associated Press, sued saying we should be allowed in the press pool in Trump's Oval Office.
Right.
This is an invitation. There's no guarantee in the Constitution that a private organization has access to Trump's office. And because Trump would invite the press in general, AP won a court case saying they should be allowed in. My argument is I should sue next. Why can't I be in the Oval Office whenever I want? What makes the AP special? If the courts are saying the AP needs to be allowed in, then I need to be allowed in too. And we'll do the podcast right from the Oval Office next to Trump because they got to let me in. It's an absurdity. So now NPR is suing Trump. Here's the executive order. The executive order that Trump issued 4 weeks ago, or I'm sorry, about 3.5 weeks ago, ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. It's not a First Amendment issue. He's saying the U.S. government cannot be spending money on promoting one ideology. That violates the First Amendment. It is a violation of the First Amendment that NPR would receive funds. That's what's at play. So they want to say that the NPR has sued. The lawsuit filed in federal court in Washington by NPR and other public radio organizations, including Colorado Public Radio. And Aspen Public Radio said Mr. Trump's order violated the Constitution. Quote, the president has no authority under the Constitution to take such actions. On the contrary, the power of the purse is reserved for Congress. The White House had no immediate comment. This month, Mr. Trump signed an executive order ordering the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which backs NPR and PBS, to freeze all funding to those organizations. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting spends more than $500 million on public radio. However, I do believe that is an executive branch, Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And so the president does have authority to direct their actions. However, there is a legal challenge and Congress has passed the funds for specific things, which means there's a check and a balance. Yeah. So this can't happen. Jumping back into what we were talking about before, getting into the story, what I wanted to mention is Phil brought up how the purpose of these news organizations is for clout and to control the narrative in the system. That's why I believe it was Haim Saban. I'm not sure. He's I don't know if he owns Univision. I think he might. Big Hillary Clinton guy. They Univision and ABC launched Fusion. And I think they spent something like $300 million trying to create what they were calling, quote, nice vice, because they needed to get young people. And they weren't profitable. They didn't expect to be profitable, as far as I can tell in the conversations I had with these people. It was to create an influence operation. They wanted to be able to mass produce content that shaped the political landscape of young people. And they failed miserably. And they had every opportunity to do it right, but boy, would they not listen. Let me give you an example of, so they failed, they laid everybody off, they burned this money to the ground, the company's completely gone. When I was there, they had produced a bunch of content that was overly woke gender ideology stuff. I went to the president of the company and I said, this stuff's not getting any views. You're not getting any traction. You're not generating any attention. And so me and my brother told them we can help them with a campaign. We can find content you have, that sleeper content that's been improperly marketed, and we can make it big. So there was one video called Open Mic Massacre, and it was a comedian, and it was a cartoon bit where every time he tried to tell a joke, they'd boo him and call him racist or a bigot. It was mocking the woke. It exploded. I don't remember how many views it got, but it got a ton of views. They doubled their subscribers, and the company went nuts, outraged. They did not want that narrative to be successful. They were pissed off that it happened. So they said, stop doing this. And that was the end of it. And I was like, I don't understand. We found the content that young people like. We helped promote it. It took off like crazy. You're building subscribers. What do you want? And they said, not that. So what did they end up doing? Doubling down on woke garbage that failed, and then they went out of business.
Well, these companies don't even care about being profitable because, again, it is an influence op. And I think we also need to take notice of one of the biggest influence ops that is coming out of the Middle East, the news organization called Al Jazeera, that I think is underappreciated for how much it is a propagandizing arm of Qatar. That, again, doesn't need to be profitable. And I think we'll need to wrangle with the consequences of news organizations not even trying to be profitable at this point. Tim, I wanted to follow up on something you said earlier about NPR, and I believe it's the AP trying to sue Trump and the Trump administration to get more access to the Oval Office. Here's the thing. We're very thankful here at Timcast for the Trump administration shaking up the way they do media access at the White House. If it was up to the White House Correspondents Association, who currently has a monopoly on coverage and access in the Oval Office, or well, used to, we wouldn't be in the Oval Office at all. Space in the Oval Office is zero sum. It's actually a very small room. And the fact when NPR isn't there or the AP isn't there, it's a different new media person that is. So all of that is to say that NPR and AP trying to sue to get back in is trying to take the place of other new media outfits getting in there, like us, like the Daily Wire, like the Daily Caller, among other people. And I hope the NPR and AP fails in their lawsuits trying to get back in.
I just want to show you guys. I found it. We've pulled this up from time to time. It's a good example of the fails. Nine years ago, 589,000 views. I show you this because I believe this is evidence that when a media company with hundreds of millions of dollars was given an opportunity to produce successful content, they chose not to intentionally. They were told what would succeed. It's not even about politics. We did a video called Fallout from Fukushima. I went to the president of the company and I said, Fallout 4 is coming out. It is the most anticipated game of the year. It's been a long time, huh? I said, Fallout 3 was game of the year. Fallout 4 is coming out. We should go to Fukushima, Japan, do a mini documentary on the disaster and where it's currently at and call it Fallout from Fukushima. We're going to capture all that SEO. So everyone's searching for Fallout's going to find our documentary, and it creates a cool real world view for what these video games are, and video games are popular. And they said, do it. Boom, 500,000 views right at launch. And they said, no, make more trans kids. I said, here's my idea for a series. Let's create mini documentaries based on video games. So Call of Duty, let's make a Call of Duty mini doc that explores modern warfare and combat. And we film it with shots. We put a GoPro on the weapon and we film first-person POV training and make it look like the video game. That way when people are playing the video game on their board, and they said, no, we want feminism, mission-driven storytelling, and none of it ever worked. That is, with hundreds of millions of dollars pouring in, the goal was never to build successful media. It was to build narrative and pay to inject it into the culture, which is what I was warning last November when I said this is what Democrats are going to do. They lost the election. Now what they're going to do is they tried the corporate route, build a company, dump the money, see if it works. Didn't work. Now they're going to find liberal podcasters and they're going to say, you got a big channel. Let's give you $10 million in advertisement. Your face will be everywhere. And what's fascinating to me is that the right with domination in the space for now, the podcast presidency they call it, have not been utilizing their resources to take cultural ubiquity. This is what I don't get. Did you guys see the Times Square thing of all the black men's faces?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
You didn't see that? Let me see if I can pull that up. Black men's faces, Times Square. What is this? How do I find this? Black men in Times Square? That's not it. Oh, okay, it is. Yeah, I can pull this one up, I guess.
Mr. Price.
Okay, that's annoying. I don't want to pull that one up. Is this it? I don't know. This might be it. Let's just pull this in and see what happens. There you go. So all of a sudden, every billboard in Times Square that you can buy turns into a picture of a black man's face. And it's some like art campaign or whatever. I was talking to my buddies about this 10 years ago. How do we buy every billboard in Times Square all at once? Because that's like a big flash. Everybody notices, and exactly what happened with this. The right won a podcast battle helping Donald Trump win, and they all remained independent, isolated, didn't do big ad runs. They're not doing what Coca-Cola does. What I think we're going to see next, I think we bought billboards. Timcast IRL is on billboards all across the country, and many people have seen them if you're driving through, especially the Rust Belt where we bought a bunch. Very expensive to do. It's because I firmly believe in a year, you are going to see insert liberal podcast all over Times Square, on YouTube, nonstop. You're going to pull up, Asmongold. You're going to want to watch, he's just a streamer, right? Politically unaffiliated, but leans kind of in the Trump direction. And whenever you click his video, it's going to autoplay a commercial from a liberal podcast or the liberal podcast itself. These big companies, they can afford to give Rachel Maddow $20 million. They're going to go to Google and say, we want to buy a big package. Let me tell you guys about last year. We spent a lot of money on Google ads. And Google, to this day, will not stop emailing me saying, please talk to us and do a deal with us. We'll cut you a deal. We'll prioritize all this stuff. Because you spend a lot of money. It makes sense. But we don't spend as much as these people can. And so we might do like tens of thousands per month, depending on the show we're doing or the videos we want to promote, things like that. What you're going to end up seeing is, here's my bet, Democrat PAC or something, or a Democrat-aligned media interest is going to say, we represent a bunch of these big podcasts on the liberal side that are on YouTube, but they don't do so well. Now, we've got a $50 million budget for the year, but we don't know if we want to spend that on YouTube ads if you guys aren't promoting us and they're not being seen by people anyway. YouTube will then be like, let's do a deal. Then when you go to the front page of YouTube as a conservative, all of a sudden you're only getting liberals.
Right.
And it's because YouTube says, look, they bought a $50 million package. So their ads are going to appear all over the place. Banner ads, video display ads, and they're going to start popping up in the algorithm more often.
So they're going to ignore your personally identified profile algorithm and then force feed you.
I would argue that there's a balance of yes with a but. YouTube, of course, doesn't want to lose users. They don't want to lose users, but the balance is, or the question is, why doesn't YouTube want people to leave the website? They want to maximize how many ads they can deliver. If they abuse it too much, people will leave. However, they also need money. And if people are already leaving to say Rumble and they're conservative, YouTube's going to have this equation in front of them. Conservatives have left and gone to Rumble, largely. And maybe not entirely, but a large portion, or at least a significant double-digit portion. We've already lost a lot of that money. How do we make back that money? Democrats then come and say, well, promote our personalities. But here's the thing, too. Like that guy Derek Thompson was saying, it's going to be sleeper cells. They're going to be liberal-aligned shows that are passively liberal, but in the health space. YouTube will start promoting these things. They've been doing it. They've done it before. They'll do it again. YouTube will begin putting pressure, so it's harder to find shows like this and other shows that lean away from the narrative machine. They'll try and do it in a way to maintain as many viewers as possible without bleeding too much. But the equation, as I mentioned, is if conservatives leave and are angry and liberals are threatening to leave, pander to the liberals. End of story, especially if they're offering big cash. I think we're going to see that next year in the midterms. And that's what's going to cause a lot of damage to Republicans. But that being said, Democrats still have crackpot policies that regular people don't like.
Yeah, I mean, the scenario you lay out actually is very similar to the way that it was before people kind of started to realize that the left controlled everything. I mean, the general consensus was that it was normal, and then you had conservatives. But then normal started saying crazy things like men can become women and such. But it was that, the general consensus was, oh, this is what normal people think, and we don't have to be political. We just talk about whatever topic we're talking about or whatever we like. And then if politics comes up, it's obvious that we would vote for Barack Obama, or it's obvious the right choice is the Democrats. And that was the way that kind of society had been running for, probably since Bill Clinton. Even when George Bush was the president, the general consensus was still from the media and from the left that it was clear that George Bush might have been kind of an anomaly, but most of your political positions should be the positions that the left had.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.